With the captions created, it's now possible to actually translate this application. There's a lot of things to know about translation, and I'll go through this one also during this video in here. So if I first look at this W1 database in here, and then look at the payment terms table, I'll see that I only have the ENU code in here. But one of the things you can do, you can import more languages, and there's two versions, it's actually based on the objects you have selected inside the object design. So I go in and say anything here that starts with NAV, that's what I want to filter on, and select them in here. And then there's two things. One is about translate, and translate, import, export is something that is used for individual files. It's a lot like the text format for the objects. The language module is like the FOB format. And I've already moved a few files in here. I have the German text layer that has been added in here, and I'll just extract this one into this folder in here. Inside in here, there's several things. First of all, if I want to use the German text layer, I need to add this folder into my executable in here that I'm using. So let's just copy this one and actually put that one into my program files folder for my NAV installer. And I'm just going to use this one for my 2009 version. So yes, I want to add my German text layer. That's all steps that needs to be done for the Rotel client, but I only will need it here for my classic client. The other thing that is part of this one in here up here is this file in common or in database. It's called DEU FLM, and FLM is Financials Language Module, and that's the file you need to import into the database. So if I now go in and say, okay, now I import a language module, I have my German one in here, and I say open. And this one is like a binary format. It will actually go through all the source code, it will modify something. And with 2009 R2, the first version where it really worked as it should not modify date, time, anything in the version list, because this one kind of is just adding some additional language, and the function to export can actually remove that additional language. So it really should not modify the object. Yeah, the code is heavily modified, but you can get rid of it and get back to the original one again in here. And of course, my database was too small in here, so let's go ahead and make it a little more room. The reason it was too small is that all objects were actually being modified, and they were put in the objects to be committed. So basically, you need almost twice the amount of space in the database if you have very little data, as in this one, because it needs to be able to hold all the objects as an uncommitted version, since this one is a native database. If you're running this one with a service tier attached, it'll be much slower, and that's because it's building all the C# code every time they do a single object in here. So you probably want to create a database, native database, and import the objects that way to make it run faster. So and at the end, I have a chance to actually say if I want to import my language module. Yep, I want to import my language module. So if I now look at my payment terms at my code field, I can see I now have my German and I have my ENU code in here. So I want to use these inside the Mergetool. So what I actually can do in here, I can go and export my language. And the translate export is very much like the normal one you would have to do for exporting objects and text. So it's a format where it's readable and you can actually get the information out of that file. So I'll go in and for this one, actually this one is W1 in here. And the normal naming of these files is actually the Mergetool expect this one to be called something with -t, but you can call it anything else actually. But this one is just the normal naming for these files. And I think actually I put these files one level higher up here. Yeah, that's what I do. So if I now look in that folder, I'll see my -t file in here. And if we take a look at that one, this portion in here is really a unique identifier. So this one is table 3, property 2818, and the maximum length allowed is 30 characters out here, and that's payment terms. The next one is property 8629 down here, and it's a caption. And then there's a language out here, and 1031 is German, 1033 is English, and every language has their own number in here. And the lengths for those captions are 99 characters in here. So this file can actually be imported into the Mergetool now. This one, of course, is W1, but what we're going to use that for is for our translation. We're going to use this one as a library where we can look up names and see if we can actually find something that can translate automatically. So the other thing we need to do from this performance database in here is to then go and export the same file for our performance solution in here. So I'll do tools, translate, export, and we just fixed it here. So I actually had all my captions in here with ENU, so I can now export that one to text. So let's go take a look in the Mergetool what I then can do with these files in here. So I didn't import my performance version here 25, so let's just go ahead and do that one. I don't need to compare it against anything, so I've just imported the. So this one was a regular import of the objects in here. What I'm now going to import is my translation down here. And I can only import one language at a time, and in this case I actually also only have one language. So I import the ENU language in here, and it defaults to the same file name with a -t at the end of it. So I now got translation tokens in here. If I go look at my translation tokens, I can see all of them has been imported in here. And there's a lot of things probably in here that exist multiple times, like the code field up here. So to deal with that one, there's a function down here where I can say update existing. And it basically calculates some fields if the same text exists earlier, if the same text is a duplicate, and so on. So if I want to know all the unique text, I can actually filter on this field being blank or no, and then I have all the text that are unique in here. And I can see some of these this one occur for 4 times in here and things like that one. So there's a lot of things I can do in here for this one. To do a translation from in here, it's also possible to actually manually just go in and write the text in here. But it would really be nice if we could just look at a library and take the text from in there and so on. So let's import the W1 version that I also exported, because I have a German text layer in there. So I could actually create my German one and use that other one. So I'm going to create a new version in here, and it is possible in here to actually create manual ones. The reason I'm not importing this one in another company is I'm going to do lookups to it, and all the function that looks into other companies are all based on not visual or functions in here. So, and then I'm going to use the same function for translation import. I have my text file down here, and I'm first importing my ENU language in here. This one is a lot more text in here. And the next thing I'm going to do is import the German text layer in here, and that will give me something I can look up to. And the object token in here, if I look at the text file again out here, this portion of it is unique, and that's actually what it will do. It will look for English text and find the one matching it. Then it will take the German one for the same token out here, and that's actually how the translation works in here. And that's more advanced features than just that, but that's one of the ways it works in here. So I had my translation imported, and I get this check mark down here, so I can actually see that exists translation tokens. But I'm going to import the German one also. So my German text will also import it in here. And I just want to go in and calculate those existing, because else I will get a lot of extra use of the same one in here. So I can see all the Germans, I have the English text in here, but I'm just going to calculate this exist in. So when I do lookup into this version, I only see the first occurrence of the text. I don't see the same one again and again, for example. So we calculated all that one. If I now go back to my own project that I'm working on here, that's the one with translation tokens, I can now go in and say, from my ENU version that is currently my only language, I can actually create a new language for that one in here. I also have an option to actually delete tokens. My solution don't have any modified base objects, so I don't have to do any one. But I could actually go in and say, okay, from my English in here, I want to go in and delete everything that is in W1, because I don't want to retranslate Microsoft's code in here. I only want to do our own code. So I go ahead and do that function, and I didn't have anything because my solution is standalone in here. But it could have deleted a lot of them in here. The next thing is, now I deleted those ones. Now I want to create a new language. And it has an option to do all languages that has been set to be translated out here, but I'm actually just going to select the German one manually and only do one in here. So it now created 128 new text. And if I look at filter on this one and look at all the text in here, I can see all the one that actually was created, and there was probably some here that should maybe not have been created as text constants, but they exist like that now. So I can now go in and say, okay, now I want to use a translation from another version. And the other version I want to take it from is from W1 down here. If you did this one for a product that was already released and you had translation, you could of course look at your own version first and then look at W1 for the new text, and then you would only have to manually deal with the few text after that one. But I'll go here and click OK, and it translated 32 of my help tokens for me in here. I put a check mark, or didn't put a check mark in, so the code in German actually happens to be the same name in English. So if I actually run this function again and say set same text as translated in here, those ones should also modify it in here. No, we didn't do that, but oh, they're not marked as translated, but in a version I'm looking from. But I can see a lot of the text now got translated, and the check mark translated got set in here. Then I can go in and say, for all these ones, I have many different ways of doing lookup in here. So let's filter on the one that are not done, and I only want to see the first occurrence of them. So this one is actually the one I have to deal with in here now to do translation. And there's a lot of functions here to do lookup. I can say, okay, let's find suggestions in a Navision version. And I forgot to put a check mark in here when I created this version. This one is a Navision version. So in this case, I can find suggestions in the Navision version. It now goes in and apply a filter up here, and it shows me all those ones. And I can see in the German version, code is actually called code in here. So I can just say, okay, this text is translated, and it tells me that 3 other was changed in here, and it will do that all the time actually. There is a way to get rid of that, and if you look up on the language in here, I can check this field out here saying that I don't want to do any change count. So if this one is used multiple places, I don't want to have that show me that all the time. So, but else, basically, you can go through and you can also edit this one manually and write the text in here also. So in this case, where I have something with commit and color, I can go in and say, okay, let's take a look at what is in the standard product. There's nothing in here, so it was probably not. This one is use translation, find suggested in the Navision version. It now shows me that table is called Tabelle in German and so on. And I can go find that one, and let's go look at related in here. So I can see actually this one is related, and there's different words for this one in here. So this one is probably part of what I want, so I'll go ahead and copy that value. And then go in and say, okay, I want to have something like that one in here. So that's part of this. The other thing is I need to find out the rest of it in here. And I know that table was Tabelle, and then I only need to figure out what color is. And the last thing I can do in here is that I can actually go in and use a translate function. Oops. To German. And I got the name out here. And they actually decided to use a different one for related. But I'm going to use the one I'm actually found in the standard product in here. So I can now create all this one basically by putting pieces together from other places. And there's certain languages where you have issues with this word is changing based on what comes behind it. And this one is probably one of the cases. Plus, in this one, actually in German, you want to put this one in as a single one in here. So in this case, I have something in here that, hey, every time I have color, I actually want to put something else in here. And one of the things you can do is a translation add-on in here. And let's just set up a translation add-on, and I'll have one called performance in here. Just perform. On a version like this one, you can actually have base terminology. And I can go in and say, okay, this one is from my DEU. I have an ENU text that is called color. And I'll have this one translated to Farbe in here. And I can have other things that I put in here. I can actually add these texts now from other places. So the first thing to do is to mark all my translation tokens that they're actually coming from this version in here. So let's get rid of some of all the filters in here. Select all of them and set my translation add-on in here. And I will select performance in here. Now let's go back, filter on my German one, and filter on the not translated ones. And say for all these ones, I want to go in and use a partial base terminology translation. And I have my version in here. And I forgot one thing before doing this. In this base terminology, I need to calculate a priority out here. It will basically take a higher number first because you want to take something that is a long text and start replacing in that one first, and then go down to shorter and shorter text at that time, for example. So you actually know that you can actually get the long text first, and then suddenly the second hit will actually not be anything in that. So, but I can add a lot more base terminology. I'm just going to show an example here with the color. So I now have done that one. Let's select all these German text again and do a partial terminology change in here. So I'll have this one, the language code is DEU, and 6 token were partially translated in here. And I can see now we went in and put that color or farbe in here instead of the color in here. This one can be used by generating this one. In general, this function to use these base terminologies should be used for table names and things like that, and not words that are this small as this one, because it will get a lot of bad hits. It just shows up nice in this example in here. I've done some translation in here, and if I look at the one that are not translated in here and the one that don't exist in the version any longer, I can keep on using all these lookup tools and things like that one as tools to look up inside my own version and things like that one. But if I want to export this one to somebody that are not familiar with NAV, I can create an Excel file and send it to them in here. So I'll go and say, yeah, I want to create an Excel file. And I now got my new Excel file down here. And there is some technical parts of it up front here. But let's make these columns the same width, all of them. This one is a text that is suggested to be entered. And if I actually go in here and say, okay, for this one, I want to go in and remove the locked on that one actually. So when I protect this sheet, these two columns, people can type in them in here. I also would like to sort this one a little differently because this person don't know about what object number it comes from or anything like that one. So the really only thing they care about is the text in here. So I'll actually just go in and sort these one by the English text. And okay, the English text sits out here. So yeah, so this one, I now have them sorted by the English text, and I have the German if there is a German language in here. The first part also is just some technical stuff, and people don't really need that. So I'll go ahead and hide those ones. And I will make a protection on this one. And I'll just put a password on it here. And now the only columns that you can type in is this one. If you go type in any of the other ones, you get an error in here. I normally also put a second spreadsheet down here with like the table names and things like that one that has already been translated. But this one can now be sent to a translation company, and they'll go through this one in here. And I'll just make some translations in here because these ones I can figure out how to do because they're kind of the same actually in here. So I'll just say they go in here. And I don't know if there's anything else I know how to do. Let's just use Google here to translate cache and disk. So I don't know if that's necessarily right, but let's just say that's actually the text in here. So now I've had this one out, it has been translated. So what I'm going to do is save this one, get it back from translation. They have not necessarily done everything, but they have done a lot of it in here. So I'll have a translate result. And I'll go ahead and close that one because the next thing I'm going to do is actually going in and opening up my Excel spreadsheet in here. And I'll go in and say, yeah, that's fine. I want to open up my translate result. It now goes through, it imports this one, and I guess I have to unprotect the sheets to actually import it. Now it's importing it. 27 of my texts were actually translated, and I can go in now and take a look at these text and the one I put in here, and I also had something about cache and disk, and that one has been marked as translated also. So the same process can also be used for proofreading and anything else actually. Just export that one, the person proofreading, put in suggested column, and you basically have everything needs to be done in